behalf of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Oneonta and the Social Action Committee, I'd like to welcome you all here. The Social Action Committee is very excited about co-sponsoring this concert. We have been highly involved in environmental and climate justice issues, sponsored a number of petitions, especially against the various pipelines. Our minister, Reverend Craig Schwallenberg, was one of the ones who went out to North Dakota in support of that protest. In addition to our climate justice work, we have sponsored this past year last Wednesday of the month Against Militarism film series. Our last one is coming up on Wednesday, May 31st. We hope some of you can join us. The film will be The Young Lords. There's a description in the back. We gather at 6 o'clock for a free vegetarian meal, and then at 7 is the film with a discussion that follows. Another one of our projects this spring is a Plates for Peace. We are having a Plates for Peace lunch on June 11th here in the sanctuary after the service on Sunday at 12:30, and we are raising money to support the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee project helping refugees in Croatia, Syrian refugees in Croatia. So we hope a lot of people will come out for that event. We have decorated plates. Doug Hallberg from the Carriage House has donated plates, which various members of the congregation have painted, and similar to what they do at Kano for the Chili Bowl. And we will be selling those plates to raise money for the Syrian refugees for $20. But if you want to just come for the lunch and use a church plain plate, we're asking for a donation of $5. Another one of our projects is Backpack Buddies, in which we collect food once a month to share with schools who are providing backpacks of healthy food for low-income children to take home, especially on the weekends. So those are some of our projects. We are delighted that you're here. We hope you will stop by our social action table and sign up either to come to the film and to come to the lunch. And there's also other material there about Compressor Free Franklin. Earlier in the fall, we had a workshop on drones and all the militarized drones and all the damage they're doing. There's a little handout called Drones Fly, Children Die that you can pick up. And there's also a 2018 budget of the federal government, what they thought would be the budget and how much money goes to military, which you might find very interesting. It's done by the War Resisters League. So thank you for coming, and enjoy all the wonderful snacks that people brought, and enjoy the concert.
And it is my pleasure, my honor to kick off this concert. We have a warm-up band, just like the great big concerts have. And I'm going to just bring up Jason Starr and the Galaxy Singers. And I'm going to ask Jason to introduce his members so I don't say somebody wrong on the drums. Oh, wait, there's no drums. But anyway, Jason Starr and the Galaxy Singers, come forth.
Give us a minute. We're going to reenact all the setting up that we did with the mics before, so it's going to be a lot of fun. It's our first number.
Actually, yes, I have to lower this one.
Yeah.
Where's John? Might have to reset them.
The other way. That way.
Oh, the other way.
Oh, there was breaking news that Trump has nominated a new director for the FBI, and that's Andrew Jackson. My mama told me that I shouldn't be a fool, but it hasn't worked so far, I'll tell you what. In honor of Mother's Day. Love you, Mama. Hope I'm doing you proud.
All set? You all set?
What the heck? You're going to introduce us?
Oh, you want the introduction now?
When?
All right, that's Charlie Reeman.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for coming. We'll see you.
Charlie Reeman.
Charlie Riemann.
Kathy Schimberg.
Kathy Schimberg.
Dennis Schultz.
Dennis.
All right. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Jason Starr. Here we go.
Ready? In G?
I believe so.
It's in C, but it starts on G. That's right. Yes, you're right. You're right. You're right. So you notice that last line, repeating. That allows anybody who wants to sing it. I know we got some singers here. I know we got some singers out there. So when you hear that last line, you repeat it. Some say that humankind won't long endure, but what makes them feel so doggone sure? I know that you who hear my sing make those freedom bells go ringing. I know that you who hear my sing make those freedom bells go ringing. Kathy. Before dawn, it's this thought keeps us moving on through all this world of joy and sorrow. We still can have singing tomorrow through all this world of joy and sorrow. We still can have singing tomorrow. Thank you very much. Who knows who wrote that song?
Was it?
Yes. Pete Seeger.
Pete Seeger.
Yep, yep. So it's nice to know Pete is with us. Yes, this next song is one that I wrote many years ago now. But it's relevant. It's relevant. I sing it all the time.
I'm surrounded by music.
Stereo. This also has a sing-along part, a call and response part. You can, of course, sing the whole thing as soon as you catch it, but there's a sing-along part, the call and response. I say nothing in the world, and the response is nothing in the world. So it's kind of easy, that repeating thing. Oh, nothing in the world, nothing is going to bring me down.
It's going to bring me down.
Nothing in the world.
Nothing in the world.
It's going to bring me down.
It's going to bring me down.
And then here's where everybody sings it if you know it, but you might by the end of it. Nothing in the world's going to bring me down. Oh, there
Might be hell to pay, but the devil's going to have to wait. Nothing in the world's
going to
bring me down today. You might be able to throw in nothing in the world, oh Lord.
Yeah.
I'll throw that.
It's definitely
I come
wide
from
open.
the blues, I don't come from the bluegrass, so it kind of might make it a little bit bluesy here.
Sequel?
See that music going back and forth in front of me?
All right.
They told me not to drink the water, I don't know.
You never listen.
I never do, really.
I will tell you all, my friends, how I came to this land. Sorrows and troubles hanging on me. One day I heard a heavenly choir. Now I'm burning with the holy fire. Nothing in the world's gonna bring me down today. Nothing in the world.
Nothing in the world.
Gonna bring me down.
Don't bring me down.
Nothing in the world.
Nothing in the world.
Gonna bring me down.
Don't bring me down.
Nothing in the world. Gonna bring me down. Oh, there might be hell to pay, but the devil's gonna have to wait. Nothing in the world's gonna bring me down today. Now if your days are going bad and night you're feeling sad, lost in this page of history, like a once famed forgotten name, here's a little refrain that keep you in good steady company. Nothing in the world,
Nothing in the world.
gonna bring me down.
Don't bring me down.
Nothing in the world,
Nothing in the
gonna
world.
bring me down.
Don't bring me down.
Nothing in the world, gonna bring me down. Oh, there might be hell to pay, but the devil's gonna have to wait. Nothing in the world's gonna bring me down today. I will tell you all, my friends, how I came to this land. Sorrows and troubles hanging on me. One day I heard a heavenly choir. Now I'm through the holy fire. Nothing in the world's gonna bring me down today. Nothing in the world
Nothing in the world.
gonna bring me down.
Don't bring me down.
Nothing in the world
Nothing in the world.
gonna bring me down.
Don't bring me down.
Nothing in the world
Don't bring me down.
oh there
Might be hell to pay, but the devil's gonna have to wait. Nothing in the world gonna bring me down today. Nothing in the world gonna bring me down today.
Nothing in the world gonna bring me down today. All right. Thank y'all so much. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Did that?
Better stand up.
Yeah. All right. We're getting warmed up now.
As you get warmed up, just about the time I gotta quit. That's not true.
If you're wondering, why do we just do that? Why do they just change? It looks so comfortable. Sometimes you can't stay comfortable. Get up, stand up. Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. So nice we sing it twice. Get up, stand up.
Come on, sister, now.
Stand up for your life.
Come on, brother, now.
Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Pipeline man, don't tell me heaven is under the earth. I know you don't know what life is really worth. It's not all that glitters is gold. Half the story has never been told. So now you see the light.
Stand up for your rights.
Yeah, get up, stand up.
Come on now, people.
Stand up for your rights.
Come on, come on.
Get up, stand up.
Yeah, children now.
Don't give up the fight. Let's hear it now. You say, get up, stand up.
Come on, get up now.
Stand up for your rights.
Come on, stand up now.
Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Most people think great God will come from the sky, take away everything and make everybody feel high. But if you know what life is worth, you will look for yours on earth. So now you see the light.
Stand up for your rights.
Get up, stand up.
Stand up.
Stand up for your rights.
Come on.
Get up, stand up.
Come on, children now.
Don't give up the fight.
Don't give up that fight.
Get up, stand up.
Come on,
Stand up for your rights.
stand up for your rights.
Get up, stand up.
Get up, children now.
Don't give up the fight.
Come on now,
I'm sick and tired of the ism, schism game. Die to go to heaven in Jesus' name, Lord. We know and we understand. Almighty God is a living man. You can fool some people sometimes, but you can't fool all the people all the time. So now you see the light. What you gonna do? Stand up for right. Get up, stand up.
come on together.
Stand up for your right.
Stand, stand, stand now.
Get up, stand up.
Come on, brother now.
Don't give up the fight.
Come on, sister now.
Get up, stand up.
Come on, people now.
Stand up for your right.
You got to stand up.
Get up, stand up.
We gonna stand
Don't
together.
give up the fight.
Don't give up the fight.
All right. Thank you so much. thank John O'Connor for letting us play up here, inviting us to warm up the stage, and Compressor Free Franklin, you guys. It seems like everybody might have the literature already, but if you don't, get back there, go see Tom over there.
And providing the sound system.
And make sure to drink plenty of water and take your vitamins, because the fight is far from over.
And since we have a multi-instrumentalist here, take advantage of that. This is also one I wrote a bunch of years ago, and still has some relevance. Saw the news at the story, I think this was 2002, 2001. There was a story on the news about the state of South Carolina, what they had flying above their state capital. Times do change, they do. Confederate flag on the state capitol, flying in the breeze for the whole world to see. You gotta believe, if you want love, you gotta feel love for your enemy. Now the cowboys and redskins marching down the lines, throwing and running for the millionth time. Yee-hee. Now see, if you want love, try feeling love for your enemy. Deep feeling love for your enemy. How do you think it can be? so much. We're going to do one more here, and then let the main event get up here. If you haven't started dancing yet, you can definitely do it on this one.
The Jan Road.
And Mulroy, yeah.
Right over there. There you go.
Ear to the rail, eye to the sky. Outrage grew when I hear that old cry. Darkness has come across this land, betrayal and lies from the mouth of a man. Using insults to pick a fight. The schoolyard bully flexes his mind. Careless tweet by the full-grown man. We don't accept as the voice of our land. Greed, evil will seal the fate of those who sleep in a complacent state. Know who you are, know where you stand. Ignite the world with giving hand. Armed with troops in the light of day, we are indivisible, we will have our say. Thank you so much, Jay.
Jan Mulroy. Jason Starr wrote the music.
Thank you, thank you. John O'Connor's coming up, everybody. Thank you so much.
What we got? Oh, was that overdue? I told you I'd just get warmed up and I'm going to quit. I just.
So get the cookies out of your mouth. Living beneath the border, a little town in paradise. I dug in my roots and I set up my teepee there. The shower was out of order, but my plants were growing nice. That lucky old sun only had to come out half the year. I took a trip to San Francisco just about a month ago. I canceled my paper, but I'll bet I left the TV on. Well, I was stalking the wild disco. Brother, I didn't know, when you leave a lady dancing, the only way she go is gone. She calls herself California. She's on the road to Jericho. Won't you say a couple prayers for the folks until we get back home? Had the time, don't you? Honey, why'd you have to go? It's the only interstate, the only place you've ever known. I guess I need a new connection. I'll be on the top again. Won't you fill up the cider jug and pass it over here? It's just for my own protection. She may just be my closest friend. When she climbs across the water, it makes my troubles disappear. Well, I freed myself from Quincy Station. My mind was in a quandary there. The narrow edge was shallow and I flirted with the evening sun. But out of all this jubilation, the gray was clouded in my hair by all these painted women. By God, they had a lot of fun. And she calls herself California. She looks a lot like Idaho. So I'll say a couple prayers for myself until I get back home. Well, I feel it only fair to warn you, when the road is gone, it's time to go. I don't know how I thought I could ever make it on my own.
Now, why don't you tell them what this song's all about? Myself a little better, I could trade it in to save my soul. But I wouldn't want to throw the baby out with the bath. I could send the kid another letter, but that would never be my goal. She'd only try to tell me which side was my better half. And she calls herself California when she dresses up in calico. And she says a prayer for everybody that she's ever known. If I only had a dime to phone ya, I could catch a train in Buffalo and sing a couple songs to each other till we get back home. If you are interested in buying a copy, try and find me somewhere. It's probably the most cynical song I've ever written. On the edge of the city, in a little motel,
getting drunk and so giddy on some old muscatel that she found in the kitchen before she left him that night. Drove all the way to Denver, got there at daylight. Oh, she looked up her best friend on the east side of town. Hadn't seen her since high school. Welcome in and sit down. How you doing, Virginia? Looking pale as can be. How's the man in the picture you sent from Tallahassee? Oh, he never sent roses, and he never brought wine. He was full of supposes and maybes all of the time. Oh, he'd tell me he loved me, then turn on the TV, and it bore no resemblance to what I thought it would be. Well, she waited the table for the trips that she drew, and she heard all the fables of hearts broken in two. How long can a woman remain cold on the shelf? How long can a grown man live inside of himself? And he never sent roses, he never brought wine. And he never brought wine, he was full of supposes. He was full of supposes, maybes all of the time, and maybes all of the time. He'd tell me he loved me, oh, he'd tell me he loved me, then turn on the TV. It bore no resemblance, and it bore no resemblance to what I thought it would be. In the back room at Harvey's, there are some tables and chairs where they throw in their antes and they count up their pairs. In the front room they're drinking, it's one more for the road. They'd be rich if they were paid for all the lies that they told. And they never sent roses, and they never sent roses, and they never bring wine. They are full of supposes and maybes all of the time. They'll tell you they love you, oh, they'll tell you they love you, then turn on the TV. It'll bear no resemblance to what you thought it would be. Thank you. Now you can see why I brought Nat Williams along. He actually knows how to play the Nat's from Woodstock, Vermont. And lives about 5 miles from a house I live in sometimes up in Vermont. I live sometimes in Vermont, and I sometimes live in Franklin. And you know, when I'm up in Vermont, Vermont's a very beautiful place, and it's rural and country-like, but Franklin is so quiet and so remote, and the place I live is just in just this wonderful, quiet little world in between some old dairy farms and some dairy farms that are still going. And when I leave Vermont, I tell people, I'm going to the country. Here's a song from my hitchhiking days. It was back in the early 80s. Did a lot of hitchhiking. Took one trip around the country. Went to some folk festivals and stopped in different cities. Played some open mics. Back then I thought that's how you get famous. You hitchhike around the country and you sing songs in front of strangers. It worked for Woody Guthrie, why couldn't it work for me? Well, those days of Woody Guthrie are gone. Anyway, there was a trip I took coming back from the Midwest, going back out to Seattle where I was living at the time. And it was middle of September, it started getting cold and rain was coming down, and I was on a road between Minneapolis and Fargo, North Dakota. And the rain was just drenching me to the bone. The weather was like 38 degrees out. People were passing me by, trucks slashing at me. This big brand new Pontiac pulled over to the side of the road. I took it to be a Mirage at first. I went over to the car and got in the back seat. This elderly couple was sitting in the front seat. They're like 47 years old or something like that. The woman looks at me and says, "We've never picked up a hitchhiker before." I was thinking, thank God for small miracles. And she looked at me again, she said, "But we've never seen anybody look as miserable as you before." We pulled out of Gary in the middle of the night. Pavement was hissing in the rain. 12 hours in a truck stop till someone did what he thought was right. There was nothing but conversation he could gain. Oh, a man can feel alone when he's been out on his own, even though there may be someone by his side. Oh, mister, slow it down as you reach the edge of town. Slow it down so you might give this soul a ride. Oh, the weather's getting colder, though September's not yet gone. My hands turned red while clinging to my bag. The company I keep is just a memory and a song, till I come across a ride that I can snag. Well, someone might be afraid when the night is getting late, and there is no one in whom you can confide. Oh, mister, slow it down as you reach the edge of town. Slow it down so you might give this soul a ride. Now wasn't it in Kansas when the wind come howling down? Thunderhead stood black against the sky. It was rolling eastward, Lord, and I was westward bound. Oh, the plains are waving wild, and so was I. Don't you know there came a time, had a face or hand been kind, I might not have hung my shaggy head and cried. Oh, mister, slow it down as you reach the edge of town. Slow it down so you might give this soul a ride. Got a sister in Milwaukee, got an aunt in Santa Fe. I got some friends who own some land in Tennessee. My I have a job in San Francisco, if I can get there right away, guess I could have told them not to count on me. But it's not that I'm in favor of this moving all around, it's sitting still that I just can't abide. Oh, mister, slow it down as you reach the edge of town. Slow it down so you might get this soul around. Sometimes the sun comes shining and the world can smell so sweet that it wouldn't matter who could pass me by. But then the cold wind comes a-whirl and nearly knocks me off my feet. It blows so hard I think that I could fly. Well, somebody may have told you that the hard times have gone, but whoever told you that, one friend has lied. Oh, mister, slow it down as you reach the edge of town. Slow it down so you might get this soul around. Well, somebody may have told you that the real hard times are gone, but whoever told you that, one friend has lied. Oh, mister, slow it down as you reach the edge of town. Slow it down so you might get this soul around. That song's on my album, Songs for Our Times, as well as the song before that, He Never Sent Roses. And I have some for sale here. And no, the song, that's even better than the roses. Lasts longer than the roses. No, I don't need a gay book for that song. Anyway, the night before the presidential election, the night of the presidential election, I should say, Leonard Cohen died. And you know, I thought, what a wise man, all the way to the end, you know? And I had been learning this song of his. I never learned any of his songs, but this song was haunting me, and I was trying to figure out how I'd sing it. And, you know, when that thing happened, this song just took on a meaning that I didn't realize it had before. It seemed so prescient to me. Everybody knows that the dice are loaded. Everybody rolls with their fingers crossed. Everybody knows the war is over. Everybody knows the good guys lost. Everybody knows the fight was fixed. Poor stay poor and the rich get rich. That's how it goes. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that the boat is leaking. Everybody knows the captain lied. Everybody's got that broken feeling, like their father or their dog just died. Everybody talking to their pockets. Everybody wants a box of chocolates and a long stem rose. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that you love me, baby. Everybody knows you really do. Everybody knows that you've been faithful, give or take a time or two. Everybody knows you've been discreet. There were so many people you just had to meet without your clothes. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that it's now or never. Everybody knows it's me or you. Everybody knows you'll live forever when you're done a line or two. Everybody knows the deal is rotten. Old Black Joe's still picking cotton for your ribbons and bows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that the plague is coming. Everybody knows it's moving fast. Everybody knows a naked man in war, a shining artifact of the past. Everybody knows the scene is dead. They're gonna put a meter at your bed that will disclose what everybody knows. Everybody knows what you've been in trouble. Everybody knows what you've been through. From the bloody cross on top of Calvary to the beach at Malibu. Everybody knows it's coming apart. Take one last look at this broken heart before it blows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. Everybody knows. Well, I don't cover very many people, but I guess if you're going to cover somebody, you might as well let her go.
Yeah.
Let's see, next. What do we do next?
I began my working life in the Midwest. I went to high school in Iowa. And my father told me, he said, John, if you don't knuckle down to your studying, you know, you're going to end up living on the other side of the tracks and working in one of those factories over there. Well, when I graduated from high school, I proved to my father that he was absolutely right. I ended up renting a house on the other side of the tracks and working in one of those factories over there. Waterloo, Iowa was a industrial town, home of John Deere tractors, lots of factories. The first factory job I had was working at the Waterloo Register Company, and the Waterloo Register Company made heat and ventilation registers. And my first day on the job, they led me to a big room they called the press room. And it's not where you iron people's pants, but it was a room full of these gargantuan machines that went up to the ceiling. And they set me down on a stool, and on one side of me was a bin full of pieces of metal. And I put them in this machine, and this big, huge, bigger piece of metal came down, and ka-ching! And I bend that piece of metal into a shape that I would put into another bin. And those pieces of metal would go off to fit into God's almighty plan for the heat and ventilation register. So I'm going at this machine all day long. Chunk, 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 chunk. And this rhythm would go through my head. I was just like on the floor 4 hours, and then half an hour break for lunch, and 4 hours more, and I go home. Chunk, chunk, chunk. And the rhythm would just start going. I'd be bored to death, so I'd start making up songs. Worked in a factory all of my life, and I ain't got nothing but a Barlow knife. And that's how I became a songwriter. It's also why all my songs are in the same time signature. Started work in '63 at the register factory. Put me on a stool on the press room floor to run this machine forevermore. Chunk, chunk all day long. Chunk, chunk was my song. If you think your life is a bore, you never been on the press room floor. 500 pieces every hour. The foreman says, boy, you'll go far. If you can make it 6:02, another machine's waiting for you. And it goes chunk, chunk all day long. Chunk, chunk was my song. If you think your life is a bore, you never been on the press room floor. Oh, the day went by so slow it seems. Night, the press room filled my dreams. I got a vacation once a year, but even at the beach, this sound I'd hear. Chunk, chunk all day long. Chunk, chunk was my song. If you think your life is a bore, you never been on the press room floor. I married a machine that cannot feel. My kids were little pieces of steel. The foreman must have been their grandpa, 'cause when the bin filled up, he said, ah. Chunk, chunk all day long. Chunk, chunk was my song. If you think your life is a bore, you never been on the press room floor. Now times have changed, machines have too. One day they said that's all for you. Modernization is where it's at. There'll be a computer where you once sat. Chunk, chunk, no more for me. I'll sit at home, I'll watch TV, collect unemployment for a while, then I'll get me a job that has some style. So I retrained in '83. No more press room, not for me. I wear a white shirt and my hands are clean. They put me in front of a TV screen. Whoop beep, whoop beep all day long. Beep, whoop beep is my song. If you think your life is a bore, you never been on the high-tech floor. Beep, whoop beep all day long. Beep, whoop beep is my song. If you think your life is a bore, you never been on the high-tech floor. And yes, my work is still a bore, and I get paid less than ever before. That same factory town, Waterloo, was the home of also Ralph packing company, Rath Meats. Is anybody old enough to remember Rath Meats? Or maybe you're too Eastern, maybe that's more Midwestern. Anyway, the Midwest was full of meat packing companies like Rath and Hormel and Morel, and it was the job at Rath Packing Company, as the job was at John Deere's, a coveted job because it paid really well, because it was unionized. Yeah. And they fought for that union, the meat packers fought for that union over the years. They were part of the CIO, and then they became the Amalgamated Meat Cutters and Butcher Workmen of North America, which is the first union I ever joined. And you know, in the 80s, the companies started breaking the unions. And I don't know if people probably remember, there was a big struggle in the Midwest against the Hormel Company in, what's the name of the town? It was in Minnesota. And they eventually, they broke that union, and they broke a bunch of other unions. I was working with a singing group called Shays Rebellion, and we sang for a few strikes in the meatpacking industry. And I learned a little bit about something called carpal tunnel when I was doing that work, because the more they sped up the line, the more incidents of carpal tunnel would happen to meat packers, meat cutters. It was one of the most dangerous jobs there were in the meatpacking industry, outside of the job of mining, of course, and because of the blades and because of these afflictions like carpal tunnel. And you know, it's something that hits a lot of people. Musicians get carpal tunnel. You know, we know of contracts we've tried to bargain where we have longer breaks, because, you know, if you practice too long without getting a break, you can, you know, repetitive motion, you can get carpal tunnel, which is why I try not to practice too much. I'll get carpal tunnel. Anyway, this is a song about carpal tunnel. It's the only song I know about carpal tunnel in the meatpacking industry. Early in the morning at the start of the day, I force my fingers round the handle of the blade, starting to cut just as fast as I can. By the end of the day, I can hardly move my hands. I got that old carpal tunnel and my hands won't move. The foreman tells me to stay in the groove. You cut that cattle as fast as I do, you'll get that carpal tunnel too. 10 years ago, I started in the kill. Now 10 years later, well, I got my fill. Well, they keep on cutting, though the line's twice as fast. Well, I don't know how long these arms will last. I got that old carpal tunnel and my hands won't move. The foreman tells me to stay in the groove. You cut that cattle as fast as I do, you get that carpal tunnel too. Work with a knife and a blade in my hands. I cut them cows with a big iron band, but it feels like a knife is cutting me all the time, because the carpal tunnel lives in the big nerve line. I got that old carpal tunnel and my hands won't move. The foreman tells me to stay in the groove. You cut that cattle as fast as I do, you get that carpal tunnel too. Now there ain't 5 minutes that passes a man that he don't feel the carpal tunnel deep in his hands. He feels it in his fingers and his wrists all the time. It's the curse of the speed up on the carcass line. I got that old carpal tunnel, my hands won't move. The foreman tells me to stay in the groove. You cut that cattle as fast as I do, you'll get that carpal tunnel too. Go in for an operation once more, but I'll come right back to the killing floor. I'll tell them, darling children of mine, don't you ever go to work on the packing house line. I got that old carpal tunnel and my hands won't move. The foreman tells me to stay in the groove. You cut that cattle as fast as I do, you get that carpal tunnel too. Foreman tells me to stay in the groove. I got that old carpal tunnel and my hands won't move. Friday night in a motel room with a bottle on a TV set. That crazy fool kept turning the channel. She hadn't found a good one yet. Well, I said, Louise, won't you help me please, and pour me another drink? She flopped down at the bottom of the bed, said, honey, what do you think? Hey, hey, Louise, the party's over. Tell the man with the four-leaf clover, adios, he can come back sometime. Red Rover, push the bottle on over. Tomorrow morning we'll both be sober. Oh, Louise, wasn't that a hell of a time? Catch a bus to Alabama if you got the dough. You can take your lodging at the police station, the all-night picture show. Just a few more dollars, it'll all be done. We had a few laughs and a lot of fun. You can call me up just anytime you want to, anytime you want to, hon. Hey, Louise, the party's over. Tell the man with the four-leaf clover, adios, he can come back sometime. Red Rover, push the bottle on over. Tomorrow morning we'll both be sober. Oh, Louise, wasn't that a hell of a time? Take a nap. It's easy come, it's easy go, you only hold it for a while. It travels down a great big drain, ends up in the rich man's pile. So don't go taking wooden nickels or betting on a rainbow sign. You know, Louise, that bottom dollar will always be a friend of mine. Hey, hey, Louise, the party's over. Tell the man with the four-leaf clover, adios, he can come back sometime. Red Rover, push the bottle on over. Tomorrow morning we'll both be sober. Oh, Louise, wasn't that a hell of a time? Red Rover, push the bottle on over. Tomorrow morning we'll both be sober. Oh, Louise, wasn't that a hell of a time? So we're going to do another song for this set, and then we're going to take a little break, and we're going to eat some chocolate stuff, and then Don's going to tell you a little bit about our cause, and then we're going to come back and sing a few more songs. Are you okay with that? And this song here, this song here was written by some friends of mine, Greg Arzner and Terry Leone, who are called Mad Pie. They're a duo. They live up toward Middleburg. And they wrote the song. I heard them sing it a few years ago, and I thought it was such a great song. And it'd be a nice song for tonight. And it goes like this. It's got a great chorus, so singing mood. Follow the money from the oil can, from Iraq to Syria. Let's start over again. Follow the money from the oil can to Iraq, Nigeria, and Kazakhstan. Follow the money from the tanker boats to the halls of Congress where it buys the votes. Follow the money till it makes you sick, slipping and sliding on the big oil slick. Follow the money, follow the money. Our addiction to oil is at the core, guzzling, guzzling more and more. Keep on drilling till the end of the earth. How many barrels is a human life worth? What's it gonna take for us to see that somebody owns the powers that be? Follow the money, yeah. follow the money. Follow the money from the oil can to Iraq, Nigeria, and Kazakhstan. Follow the money till the halls of Congress where it buys the votes. Follow the money till it makes you sick, slipping and sliding on the big old slick. Follow the money, follow the money. Which politicians have to gain by big oil money in their campaign? They get big tax breaks and subsidies while our pockets are empty and we're on our knees. BP and Exxon don't have to comply. They got the best Congress that money can buy. Follow the money, follow the money. Follow the money from the oil can to Iraq, Nigeria, and Kazakhstan. Follow the money from the tanker boats to the halls of Congress where it buys the votes. Follow the money from where it's sent right down to the office of the president. Follow the money, follow the money. Better way. We're the people of the world and we'll have our say. Time for all nations to rearrange. Time for a global oil change. Save the planet, it's not too late. Time for separation of oil and state. Follow the money, yeah. Follow the money. Follow the money to solar power. Free energy every daylight hour. Follow the money to power that's free. We don't need their oil dynasty. Follow the money to the halls of state. Power of oil got to separate. Follow the money, yeah. Follow the money. Follow the money from the fracking well right down to Wall Street where it rings the bell. They cut down our forests and they ruin our lands to put big money in their grubby hands. Pipeline execs make their money work by lining the pockets of officials at FERC. Follow the money, yeah. Follow the money. Follow the money from the oil can to Iraq, Nigeria, and Kazakhstan. Follow the money from the tanker boats to the halls of Congress where it buys the votes. Follow the money till it makes you sick, slipping and sliding on that big old slick. Follow the money, yeah. Follow the money. Follow the money. Follow the money. Thank you. See you in a few minutes.
That's how music is made. Another hand for John. This is called intermission. You know, if you don't want to hear me blab, just head for the restrooms, head for the snacks, and we'll go from there. Compressor Free Franklin was founded, that's the word. I bummed up a knee this week, and it's really driving me crazy. And believe it or not, I actually feel older than I look, whereas last week, I felt a lot younger than I look. So be patient with me. Anyway, we were founded by a bunch of like-minded individuals that were, I guess, in the dark about what all this flack about pipelines and fracking and everything else was in some sense of the manner. You know, everybody had heard, starting back in 2012, that there was a pipeline that was going to come through from the Marcellus Shale fracking wells in Pennsylvania, and it was going to come right up through Delaware County as well as a bunch of other counties. 125-mile long pipe in the ground, and there wasn't really a whole lot of concern initially because, after all, it's a pipe in the ground. Then, 2 years later, that was the Constitution pipeline. 2 years later, the Northeast Energy Direct pipeline was proposed by Tennessee Gas, and that was going to be a 36-inch line, and it was going to come right beside this one. It was going to be co-located, following through. So now instead of having a 100-foot swath, there's going to be at least close to 150 or 200 feet by the time they place both things. But the thing that really pushed the hot button was they mentioned this thing called a compressor station. Now, most of us know compressors. They're little things that you keep in your garage, you blow up your car tires, no big deal. Well, we started hearing that this compressor station, it initially was targeted to be like 30,000 horsepower, and we started looking into it, and that got people riled up because we found this is not just pipes in the ground. This is a swath of forest and farmland and areas that are going to be taken with an easement by eminent domain. And you think back, well, let's see. We have the rights to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and we can own land. Well, unfortunately, we can own land only until eminent domain finds a public use for it. So the oil companies have been granted, and natural gas companies, the energy companies, let's just generalize it, they have been granted eminent domain because, after all, everybody uses power. You drive a car, I drive a car, you have a lawnmower, I have a lawnmower. And the United States has had a policy ever since pretty much our inception of low-cost food, because people don't like to go hungry. You find out what the French Revolution is when people go hungry. And low-cost energy. Well, low-cost energy has allowed us, in 150 years from the first oil well that was dug in Pennsylvania in 1857, low-cost oil has allowed us as a humanity, let alone a country, to go from a lot of manual labor, and literally it was handwork, and horses and oxen. We've come to the point now where most of us work, but a lot of it is not physical work to the level that it was. And so, yes, a lot of good has come from low-cost energy. Now we're at the point where that's going to come right and bite us in the back end, because all of that low-cost energy, coal, oil, natural gas, all these fossil fuels, as they get burnt, are releasing carbon. We've all heard of greenhouse gases. We've all heard of things that are, invading the atmosphere that politicians haven't all agreed or understood that there is this thing called, call it climate change. It was originally called global warming, but that's taboo now. It's climate change. But we are warming up this earth, and whether the politicians want to believe it or not, the scientists have proven that yes, there is a gradual warming in the earth, and at some point, we're going to reach that tipping point. We've all seen how the glaciers have receded. Last year, I believe, was the first year that they ever were sailing a ship across through the North Pole, where several Arctic explorers lost their lives walking up through there trying to search for this North Pole, walking over top of hundreds, if not thousands, of feet of ice. It's pretty hard to stand in front of a group and say that climate change doesn't exist. I mean, that's drinking that Kool-Aid that they want to feed us. Well, Compressor Free Franklin really got started with the hot button of a compressor station. We didn't know a lot about it. We started looking, we started reading, we started talking, and we found out, yes, this is not just a pipe in the ground. A compressor station is a huge pump in the middle. So like you take a 300-foot garden hose, if you want to go 600 feet, put another pump there, send it another 300 feet. That's literally what it was. Constitution, when they came through, did not propose a midstream compressor station or any compressor stations on 125 miles. NED, Northeast Energy Direct, did propose that, and that really brought the hornets out of the nest, because now you start thinking about, okay, well, even if the Constitution pipeline comes through, how are they going to do this without a compressor station? They'll have to have at least one, if not two, one every 40 miles or one bigger one every 60 miles. And as more things got developed, we found out that this was going to be a 50,000 horsepower compressor station running 24/7. Now, I'm a little biased here. There's going to be a mile up the road from my house where they took a property and put a purchase offer on it, 117 acres with the potential of building this compressor station in the future. Well, I'm proud to say that Compressor Free Franklin, we made some noise, but we also found a lot of other kindred spirits, other groups, other organizations along the whole swath of this pipeline, and even from other areas of the country. The Constitution pipeline, there was enough pressure on Governor Cuomo and the DEC that they were denied the water quality permit, which would allow them to cut across 270 some streams and trickles of water and springs that feed the Oleout, the Susquehanna River Basin, on down through to Pennsylvania. That essentially stopped the Constitution temporarily. It's not over, folks. NED, the Northeast Energy Direct, that monster with the compressor station, all that was going to do was send gas up to an existing pipeline that heads out through New England. They wanted to build a new one all the way out through, but if they couldn't do that, they were going to just add it to that other pipeline, because after all, New England, with all their cold winters, was having terrible trouble with heating. Bull crap. I mean, I'm sorry, but it just, they tried to make the necessity and need obvious so that they could build these pipelines with eminent domain. And it became obvious that these were not necessary. There were other options. You can build storage bins. You can truck stuff in. You were talking really 10% or less of the pipeline would be used to meet New England's need. The other 90% was heading onto another pipeline from Boston to Nova Scotia to liquefied natural gas corporations that were going to compress that gas and put it on these monster tankers for Europe. They do have an LNG plant up in Nova Scotia. They are loading ships. They are promoting to try to get one, down in the Gulf Coast of America. They wanted one towards New York, and that got kiboshed, fortunately. But the point is, the fight's not over, folks. We believe that the Constitution will be coming back. We now have a federal administration in Washington that is very much into supporting the oil and gas energy industries. We have a president that is really dismantling the EPA. He's taken the guts right out of it. Our plans to. We need to fight that. And we have a government that wants to allow drilling in our natural parks and everything else. I mean, it's not over, folks. And as long as there's big money, and as long as you can export this natural gas to Europe and Asia at 5 to 7 times the price that we get locally, they're going to push to do that because they make the money. The people that build the pipelines, the people that build the ships, the people that build the compressor stations, the fat cats that take and invest this money, that give them the money to do it but want a good return on it, they're the ones that are going to make the money, and the rest of us are the ones that are going to pay the price, because we are potentially within 10 years or 20 at the most of reaching that tipping point where we've heated the planet enough that if we totally stopped, we might not be able to reverse it for 1,000 years. I mean, most of us aren't going to live that long. I mean, I'd like to make 100, but not 1,000. So the fight's not over. We firmly believe the Constitution is coming back. Senator Seward has just set up a 9-county coalition saying how badly we need this energy and how it's going to bring jobs and everything else to our area. Folks, that's that's the Kool-Aid you're selling. There was a proposal before the Constitution was, back in 2010, give or take, that would have brought gas from the Millennium Pipeline to Amphenol, not having to have the Constitution. Could have gone from Amphenol to green. They could add it onto that pipe or build a bigger pipe when they were doing it for Raymond Corporation. When the Constitution was announced, that got dropped like a hot potato. NYSEG, well, I'll start over. The Oneonta Town Council and Lawrence and other ones in this area, I don't mean to badmouth them, but they're saying the same thing. We need this energy to grow this area. Not really. NYSEG had a proposal 4 years ago about enlarging their 8-inch pipe that comes down already to Oneonta, New York State Western Gas. They were enlarged that to a 10-inch pipe that would provide enough energy to take care of current population and allow for growth. You probably recently saw something, maybe you didn't, but in the news about, Omegang having trouble losing a batch of beer because the power went out. Well, folks, if you run an industry, you plan for contingencies. I worked for 18 years in 2 different companies that provided food or flavorings to the food industry. Both had perishable products, and what do? You put in a backup system. You find a generator to run when the lights go out. It's not rocket science, and it's just good business. How many people, I won't ask, but I have a generator at home, just in case the power goes out. I want to keep my refrigerator going, my freezer going. We've seen the time when it's been out for a few days. Very rarely, but we've seen it. And so you make a little investment and you plan ahead and you take care of things. So anyway, I made a few notes. Sometimes the train, leaves the station before it gets from the brain to the mouth, but I think that is pretty much all I was going to say. Oh no, let's go back to federal. We now have an administration that wants to amend the Natural Gas Act. Could be a major disaster. The Natural Gas Act has already provided a out from Clean Air and Clean Water Acts for the energy companies. They get a pass that a lot of other industries do not. They want to revamp that so that they can fast track things through the Federal Energy Regulation Committee, FERC. They'll have less public opinion, less time for scientists or anybody else to offer advice. That in itself, let alone dismantling EPA, it's just a disaster waiting to happen. So I thank you for your time, and please, if you want any more information, you can find us on compressorfreefranklin.org. If you make the mistake and put .com, we own that too. So you will find us one way or another. Please look it up and educate yourselves, because that's the path to enlightenment. Some of these elected officials, they're the ostrich with the head in the sand. They tout that science is not the answer. Not true. Science proves the answer, publishes it in peer-reviewed articles and stuff and everything else, and that's been going on since way back into the 70s. They've been talking about what we're doing to the environment. Thank you very much for your time, and when they are ready, I'm going to bring back our musicians. Thank you.
So, hello everybody. It's poetry time. I toured for 15 or 20 years, and then I gave up the ghost and took a day job for 20 years in New York City. And I started writing poems and sending them out. And a few people have made the observation that going from a musician to a poet isn't a great career move. But I've never been one for great career moves. So I have a book that was published last year. It won a prize, and I've got a few copies here. And I thought I'd read a couple poems before we get started with the music. I wanted to read a poem in honor of Mother's Day. This is a poem that features my mother, who died about 35 years ago, this month actually. And let's see, where is it? I had a complicated relationship with my mother. But you know, when I say that, I think, who the hell doesn't have a complicated relationship with their mother? And I've learned recently that I have high blood pressure. And you know, I'm a pretty healthy guy. I exercise, I eat pretty well, and so on and so forth. And I got that from my mother. She had high blood pressure. So I got a few things from my mom in that nature. This poem's called Heredity. I have the gene that made my mother's left leg shorter than her right. I can see her at night, lying in her bed, her feet toward the ceiling, demonstrating. Did she mean it to be funny or tragic? Because of the gene that kept her hair brown until the day she died at 72, I will not be gray when one day, while reading a novel on the couch, a gene from the same pool will set the trap that will close down a ventricle and send the last confusing thought through my brain. My big brother had that gene. His hair was dark, his beard red, his life awkward as a sideways helix. My mother was patient with him even when he was unemployed for long stretches. Her tenderness lay in the cradle of her cruelty, which she inherited from my grandmother, who would easily fall to throwing things at her while calling her a dumb cluck. My mother and my aunts grew up insulting each other in thinly veiled ways, often giving their children the same family treatment. She smoked 3 old gold cigarettes each day, non-filters, spat the dry residue of tobacco off of her tongue into the pledged air of the living room. She loved opera and listened to it on the radio on Saturday, which is when she dusted and shook the rugs. One by one, our house emptied until my father and my little brother were left. Then there was only my little brother. I could see how hard it was for him to live there alone with her, knew he would leave as soon as he could. I stand in front of the mirror in my undershorts and stare at my uneven pelvis and think of my mother, who did not possess the gene which knows the difference between embracing the ones you love and driving them away, the same gene that guards the heart from breaking. I'll give you one more poem before we bring the guitars out again. This is a poem I wrote a few days after that thing happened last November. I was visiting Seattle, and this poem's called The Fall. My old friend and I walked down the sidewalk after drinking beer and whiskey at the pub and despairing over the election of the new president. Walk is the wrong word, at least for my friend, who is in a wheelchair he's occupied since he fell from a roof 35 years ago. We haven't gone half a block when his front casters hit the edge of a section of sidewalk, heaved up half an inch, and his chair halts with a jolt, and he pitches forward and lands spread-eagled on the concrete. At exactly the same time, the toes of my shoes stumble on the same edge of pavement, and I arrive next to my friend as if we are bunkmates flopping belly first onto our mattresses. I pick myself up and look at the atrophied legs crumpled beneath him as he lifts his torso upright
and wonders aloud in a panicked tone whether one of them might be broken. He wouldn't know. The pain that comes with crushed limbs hasn't lived in his legs for decades. He can't get himself up, and I don't have the strength to lift him properly back into the seat of his chair. Help arrives, stragglers from the nearby bar. He's back in his chair, and I'm on my feet, humbled that we are two drunks who have been face down near the gutter. And we are old drunks who would appear to most of the world as pathetic and beyond empathy. Our jeans are torn and dirty, and the country of our birth has just elected a fascist to lead a drunken nation down a road of frost heaves and potholes toward a cliff. I walk with my friend to his car, help him make his transfer in front of the steering wheel, and place his chair wheels in the back seat. Then he is gone, and I walk the other way over the Fremont Bridge before the misted street lamps, wondering if his legs are all right before I hear my own voice speaking to the darkened sky. Well, of course they're not all right. Really glad that Nat came all the way down from Vermont to join us this evening. Start out with a Woody Guthrie song. Oh, the world has 7 wonders, so the travelers always tell. Some gardens and some towers, I guess you know them well. But now the greatest wonder is in Uncle Sam's fair land. It's a King Columbia River and a great Grand Coulee Dam. She heads up the Canadian Rockies where the rippling waters glide, come a-tumbling down the canyon to meet the salty tide. In the great Pacific Ocean where the sun sets in the west, it's a King Columbia River and the land I love the best. She heads down her granite canyons and she bends across the Lee like a dancing, prancing stallion on her stairway to the sea. Cast your eyes upon the greatest thing yet built by human hands. It's a King Columbia River and a great Grand Coulee Dam. Crystal glitter of the wild and the windward spray, man had fought the pounding waters, met a watery grave. She tore her boats to splinters, but she gave men dreams the dream of the day that Coulee Dam would cross that wild and wasted stream. Now at Bonneville on the river, there's a green and a beautiful sight. It's a Bonneville Dam rising in the sun so clear and white. While the leaping salmon play along the ladders and the rocks, there's a steamboat load of gasoline whistling past her docks. Uncle Sam took up the challenge in the year of 33 for the farmer and the factory and all of you and me. He said, roll along Columbia, you can ramble to the sea, but a river while you're rambling, you can use some work for me. And now in Washington and Oregon, you can hear the factories hum, making chrome, making manganese and light aluminum.
And there is a flying fortress now that fights for Uncle Sam. Spawned upon the Columbia River and the great Grand Coulee Dam.
There is a flying fortress that fights for Uncle Sam, spawned upon the Columbia River in the great Grand Coulee Dam. Now that song was written in a different time. So Woody Guthrie was thinking about how great all these factories would be, all this power coming from the great Columbia River. And Woody Guthrie wrote that song back in the late 1930s. And he wrote that song and about 30 other songs when he was out in the Pacific Northwest for about a month with the people who were working on the Grand Coulee Dam. I lived in Seattle for about 12 years, and I never made it to that side of the mountains. You know, Washington State is separated by a mountain range, and everything west of it is green and lush, and that's where all the carpetbaggers like me go. Stay for a few years, and some stay forever. But when I decided to move back east, I thought it would be good to make a pilgrimage to the place where Woody Guthrie wrote these great songs, Pastures of Plenty, Hard Traveling, some of his best songs really were written in that period. So I got in my '67 Dodge Dart and I drove up the Cascade Mountain Range, doing about 48 miles an hour up that long mountain. Came down the other side of the mountain doing about 76 miles an hour. And I had circled on a map a town that I wanted to see up near the Coulee Dam called Electric City. Electric City, that's the name of the town. I thought, I gotta go see what this town looks like, Electric City. I imagine it probably looked a little bit like a pinball machine, you know, with all these tubes and bells. And I got to Electric City and I found out it was just really kind of a wide spot in the road with a motel and, you know, tumbleweeds growing through it. I checked into a motel in Electric City and I was kind of thirsty. I thought it'd be nice to have a beer. And there are no taverns in Electric City. So I got in my car, drove a couple more miles to the town of Grand Coulee. And there was a tavern in Grand Coulee, but it was closed. And I was getting thirsty. So I looked at my map again, and I saw that you can drive across the Coulee Dam into a town called Coulee Dam. And so that's where I went, and I found a tavern, and it was open, and it was hopping. The women's bowling team had just let out, and all these people were in there shooting some strange version of Cutthroat at the pool table, and they were having a great time. And I sat down at a bar stool, and I realized as I was looking around that, except for the bartender, I was really the only white person in that tavern. Everybody else was Indian, Native American. And I was sitting next to an Indian who seemed to be about my age, and he was the kind of guy who, after he'd had a few drinks, was a little pissed off at the world. And I knew this because I was sitting next to him, I was just getting over a cold, and I coughed, and he looked at me and he said, "If you're contagious, I'd appreciate it if you moved to another stool." And I looked back at him and I said, "Well, you know, I've had this cold for a while, actually. I think I'm over the contagious part of the cold." And he looked back at me and he said, "You guys gave us smallpox." Well, he kind of had me there. Conversation wasn't exactly going uphill, and I thought maybe I just should move to another stool, but then I thought, no, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to try to get through and see if I can learn something about this guy. And I did. I talked to him for a little while, and I did get to know his story, and after things went on a little while, we became sort of friends. And he told me about his story and being an Indian who lived in Alaska and went and fought in Vietnam and was wounded there and came back to Alaska and realized that his people were down in the Colville Indian Reservation. You know, the thing that really made me sit there at that stool was thinking back when I was growing up in New Mexico. My father used to take us camping. And we went camping one time at the Kit Carson National Park, and it was above Taos, New Mexico. And we were camped out, and an Indian in a pickup truck pulled through our campsite, next to our campsite, and the Indian got out of the pickup truck, and he was another guy that, after he'd had a few drinks, was a little pissed off the world, and he was yelling close to where we were, and my father went over to see what was going on, and he started shoving his finger at my father and said, "You white men stole our water rights, and you white men, you took our lands, and you white men, you've done all this oppressing of us." And my father said, wait a minute. He said, "I'm not white." He said, "I'm Irish." And the Indian fellow reached back into the cab of his pickup, and he pulled out a bottle of beer and he handed it to my father, and they put their arms around each other and started cursing the white man together. So I was sitting talking to Willie, was the name of this Indian fellow. He asked me if I was from the area. I said, "No, I'm a stranger in town." And he said to me, I'll never forget it, he said, "I'm a stranger everywhere I go. When I came down from Alaska in the year of '81, I was headed for Grand Coulee, the Colville Reservation. The tribe of the Nesquilum, I learned that I was one, and of this rocky soil I was a living son. I'm a stranger on this land, in the country where my people are from. I'm now of a homeless band. I sit in the Coulee taverns, drinking up all the beer, 'cause long before the day I was born, I was a stranger here. A stranger in the army when they sent me off to Nam, dodging the bullets of other native people we went to bomb. I took one through the shoulder and I got one in the arm. But shrapnel and metal are not the kind of weapons that done me harm. I'm a stranger on this land, in the country where my people are from. I'm now of a homeless band. I sit in the Coulee taverns, drinking up all the beer, 'cause long before the day I was born, I was a stranger here. The big dam holds the water, the desert holds the dirt, the reservation holds the wretched people of the earth, who once provided for themselves, who fished and traveled around, who never once imagined what would happen to this ground. I'm a stranger on this land, in the country where my people are from. I'm now of a homeless man. I sit in the Coulee taverns, drinking up all the beer, 'cause long before the day I was born, I was a stranger here. When I came down from Alaska, I was looking for a home, but after 6 years on this ground, I find that I have none. But someday rise the phoenix from the ashes and the dirt, and no more will my people and I be
strangers on this earth. I'm a stranger on this land. In the country where my people are from, I'm now of a homeless band. I sit in the coolie taverns, drinking up all the beer. 'Cause long before the day I was born, I was a stranger here.
You know, when people get pissed off by all the thievery that's going around them, and when their country becomes just one big theft, sometimes people have what are known as revolutions. And that's something that happened in 1979. When the Sandinista movement came down from the hills and took over the government and threw out the hated dictator of Somoza, one of the most hated dictators in Latin America. And believe me, there are a lot of hated dictators in Latin America. And when I was living out in Seattle, I went down to Nicaragua for a couple of weeks. And we visited that country, and I wrote some songs about that revolution. It's been, you know, what is it, 40 years now or something like that since that happened? Maybe longer, 50? But you know, the government of the United States tried to wreck that revolution. I don't know, probably a lot of people will remember that. The people that worked for, the soldiers that worked for Somoza fled the country and formed a Contra army and tried to launch a counter-revolution. We were down in Nicaragua, musicians and some artists, in 1984. The revolution actually was going pretty well. They had set up some literacy programs, some health clinics, some farmers' co-ops, land that Somoza had stolen from the people, given it back to the people. And Nicaragua was a revolution of musicians, a lot of musicians and poets in Nicaragua. We were driving in our little van across the countryside one day. We saw what appeared to be a campesino in the distance running across. Somebody looked out the window. What's he carrying over his shoulder? Well, I don't know, it looks like it might be a gun, a rifle, because some of the farmers had to bring rifles into their fields to protect themselves against counterattacks. No, it's not a rifle. I think it might be a hoe or some farm implement that he's carrying over his shoulder. And as we got closer to where he was, we could see clearly that it was neither a gun nor a hoe. He was carrying a guitar with him across the road. The sky is so blue and the fields are so green and the air is so thick and so sweet. There in the row is the campesino. He has no shoes on his ambling feet. What does he carry so easy and free on his shoulder at the end of his day? Is it the hoe or is it his gun? Or is it the guitar he plays? Is it the hoe or is it his gun? Or is it the guitar he plays? He walked in these fields since his father was young, since his mother was so strong and alive. His brother came running to carry the water ever since he was barely just 5. How they were poor and their life was a war. The hoe was much too short for a man. Bent in the fields where his father had died, he didn't even own the dirt on his hands. Bent in the fields
his father had died, he didn't even own the dirt on his hand. Ring out the bell and go pluck on the strings. There's a song in the baile tonight. We'll sing and we'll dance and we'll tell all the stories, how we had won the good fight. And though many were lost and some children are gone, they will live for long in our souls. They carried the gun and they played their guitars, and they died for the young and the old. They carried the gun and they played their guitars, and they died for the young and the old. Now this land is our land, we worked it and nursed it, fought for it till we had won. The corn and the beans, all the cotton and coffee, the hoe and the guitar and gun. I remember my father taught me to play, he taught me the songs that I know. He said to fight for your people and to fight for your land, with your guitar, your gun, and your hoe. He said to fight for your people and to fight for your land, with your guitar, your gun, and your hoe. Oh, the sky is so blue and the fields are so green, and the air is so thick and so sweet. And there in the row is the campesino, he has no shoes on his ambling feet. What does he carry so easy and free on his shoulder at the end of his day? Is it the hoe or is it his gun, or is it the guitar he plays? Is it the hoe or is it his gun, or is it the guitar he plays?
A couple of years after I got back from the trip, I got up in the morning and I opened the newspaper and I read a story about a young engineer from Oregon named Benjamin Linder, who had gone to Nicaragua to work with the campesinos and help them build power dams. And one day when he went out to work, a Contra band came by and they killed him. And this was a big shock to a lot of us. A lot of my friends knew Ben Linder. I didn't know him personally. And so I wrote this song in memory of Ben Linder. Where are you going, Benjamin Linder? Where had you gone 2 years ago? I've gone to build dams for the Camaleona, gone to build dams for the campesino. Where did you come from, Benjamin Linder? Where is the country from which you have come? It's a land much like this one, green mountains and valleys. In a place far northward, it's called Oregon. Who did you live with, Benjamin Linder? Who did you live with? Who were your friends? I lived with the people of brown skin and dark eyes. I called them my family, I made them my kin. Who did you work with, Benjamin Linder? Who were the people that stood at your side? They were poor, they were tired, they were hungry and homeless, and I loved them like brothers and sisters of mine. Who was it killed you, Benjamin Linder? Who was it shot you down in cold blood? I was killed by the government of my own country, mowed down in the morning by their hired thugs. Why did they kill you, Benjamin Linder? Why did they fill your young body with holes? They killed me for power, for greed, and for money. They killed me because I had love in my soul. Where are you now, Benjamin Linder? Where can I find you, Benjamin, please? I live in the dark eyes of the poor campesino. I live in the hands that are working for peace. Thank you. It was Lyndon Johnson who began to wage the war on poverty. I think poverty won, actually. And this was back in the, what was it called? What do you call it? The Great Society? Was that Lyndon Johnson? So he invented this thing called a poverty line. And if you lived above the poverty line, you're doing okay. And if you're living below the poverty line, you needed some help. Well, the musicians in this room know where they are in that spectrum. They seem to land right smack dab on the poverty line. Some people live in the Ritz Hotel. Some people live up in Scavenger Hill. Me, I'm here in a heck of a bind. I live on the poverty line. I live on the poverty line, I do. I've been here for quite a long time, mind you. Why don't you come on over and I'll wine and dine you at my home on the poverty line. Try that with me. I live on the poverty line, I do. I've been here for quite a long time, mind you. Why don't you come on over and I'll wine and dine you at my home on the poverty line. There you go. Some days I work, some days I don't. Sometimes they'll have me and sometimes they won't. Sometimes it's $1, but mostly it's a dime. That's the wages on the poverty line. Oh, I live on the poverty line, I do. I've been here for quite a long time, mind you. Why don't you come on over and I'll wine and dine you at my home on the poverty line. I eat from a plate and I drink from a cup. I shop at the grocery where the prices go up. While the money in my pocket is on the decline, I live on the poverty line. Oh, I live on the poverty line, I do. I've been here for quite a long time, mind you. Why don't you come on over and I'll wine and dine you at my home on the poverty line. Oh, they talk about recovery year after year. The politicians tell me, don't you have any fear. Stick with the plan, everything will be fine. Do they think I haven't heard that line? Oh, I live on the poverty line, I do. I've been here for quite a long time, mind you. Why don't you come on over and I'll wine and dine you at my home on the poverty line. Jungle and the shark in the sea, the fat cat in the forest of the free economy. Sucks in the blood, spits out the grind, and it lands on the poverty line. Oh, I live on the poverty line, I do. I've been here for quite a long time, mind you. Why don't you come on over and I'll wine and dine you at my home on the poverty line. One more time. I live on the poverty line, I do. I've been here for quite a long time, mind you. Why don't you come on over and I'll wine and dine you at my home on the poverty line. At my home on the poverty line. In my home on the poverty line. On my home on the poverty line. Okay, so we got a couple more songs for you, and want to thank you all for coming out on such a miserable night. But the good news is we have more of this kind of weather tomorrow. We can take it. This next song is another song that's going to be on my upcoming album, which I'm so eager to see out. If you're interested in the album, you can keep up to date with me by going to my website, and I will announce when it's out. My website is John Paul O'Connor, that's with an O-R and no apostrophe, johnpauloconnor.com. This song is called The Best Thing We've Got.
We can't look in the eye that mean old stranger comes around here, turning the wrenches, tightening our defenses. No one even knew we had near. And I do declare, when I was a fair-headed lad, climbing trees and playing with toys, and I never thought the love that I got from my friends was a matter of choice. We read all the news as we grow so old, that we are more separate than not. But of all that is bartered and bought and is sold, I know we are the best thing we've got. People find niches, they hide in deep ditches in order to grow to be women and men. And it may be they're close to what's under their noses, in their ties to their families and friends. And we read all the news as we grow so old, that we are more separate than not. But of all that is bartered and bought and is sold, I know we are the best thing we've got. So my friend, sit by me and let me plainly see your arms and your fingers and those two eyes so blue, and tell me I'm not from some other lot, and what I thought when I was young is still true. 'Cause I do declare, when I was a fair-headed lad, climbing trees and playing with toys, that I never thought the love that I got from my friends was a matter of choice. So damn
them all the news as we grow so old. It says we are more separate and not, 'cause of all that is bartered and bartered is sold. I know we are the best thing we've got. All that is bartered and bartered is sold. I know we are the best thing we've got. Thank you very much. I want to thank all the good people that put this event on. Don Hubbard and Jan Moe especially did a lot of work on publicity, and the other people in the committee, the Compressor Free Franklin folks, and the, let's see if I can remember this, the Social Action Committee of the Unitarian Universalist Society. And I want to thank again all the musicians who opened they were great. With Jason and the crowd, with Dennis and Charlie. Thank you. I was thinking about the Unitarians the other day, because I remember Utah Phillips told us about the Unitarian Church out in Seattle, because the Ku Klux Klan one night came down and burned a question mark on their lawn. I hope the Unitarians have a sense of humor. Yeah, they do. I know they do. They wouldn't have people like me coming if they did. So we'll end with this song. This is a song that was written by a guy named Paul Tinker. I like to end my concerts with this song. It's about riding a bicycle through the streets of St. Louis. I like singing this song because I really actually feel like I'm riding a bicycle down a hill when I'm singing this song. So that's the best way to ride a bicycle, is down a hill. And the chorus is the street names of in St. Louis, and it's easy to pick up on. I ride my bike, I don't need no car. I'm here to there like a shooting star. Burn no petroleum, I guzzle no gas. I get to laugh at the pumps I pass on the many hills of Big Bend Boulevard. A few I've known a few I have known. From Rock Hill Road to hilly High Del Mar, my home I call my home, I call my home. Try to, there are many hills on Big Bend Boulevard. There are many hills on Big Bend Boulevard. A few I've known, I've known a few I have known. From Rock Hill Road to hilly High Del Mar, my home I call my home, I call my home. Now Big Bend used to be a narrower street. Shady trees kept it out of the heat. And now it's wider than a parking lot. And in the summer it gets pretty hot on the many hills of Big Bend Boulevard. A few I've known, I've known a few I've known. From Rock Hill Road to hilly High Del Mar, hilly High Del Mar. My home I
I call my home, I call my home. In University City, there's a stretch that's still real pretty, covered over by a couple of score of you city's pretty sycamore. But now they're talking about cutting the trees so all the gas guzzlers won't have to squeeze. Why do they have to make the streets all wider? Look at all the cars with just one rider on the many hills of Big Bend Boulevard. A few I've known a few I have known. From Rock Hill Road to Hilly High Del Mar, my home I call my home, I call my home. So if the price of gas is raising your ire, get out the clunker and pump up the tire. Push on the pedals, watch the two wheels turn. If nothing else, you're sure to learn. There are many hills on Big Bend Boulevard. A few I know a few I have known. From Rock Hill Road to Big Bend Boulevard, my home I call my home, I call my home. There are many hills on Big Bend Boulevard. A few I've known a few I have known.